What is the thought that comes to mind when you think about mental health? Do you think of depression, of anxiety? Do you think about self-care? What are the feelings that come up when somebody tells you mental health? Maybe you grew up in an environment that doesn't really acknowledge mental illness. I know for myself, I grew up in a time and place where people used to say that depression was a rich man's headache, and they didn't acknowledge what it was like to experience mental illness. 1 in 5 people in the US experience mental illness. If you're wondering what that's like, that means 57.8 million people in the US alone are right now experiencing some sort of mental illness. 12% of all men suffer from mental illness, and 19% of women. That means it's something that we as women should pay attention to. If you were to look up the definition of mental health in the Oxford Dictionary, it will tell you that it is a person's condition as it pertains to their psychological and emotional well-being. Mental health is categorized in 4 different ways. It includes mood disorders. This includes depression, bipolar. It includes anxiety disorders. I'm not going to lie, I personally suffer from phone anxiety. Hate to talk on the phone. We also have personality disorders and psychotic disorders. This includes things such as schizophrenia. Those 4 types of mental illness affect the lives of people in so many different ways. We think that it's just one thing, but it's not. It affects in 5 different ways, with the physical, the emotional and spiritual, the intellectual, the economic and financial, as well as the social aspects of people's lives. The impact that mental illness has goes far beyond what we see on the surface. In Genesis 21, we read the story of Hagar, a servant girl who was made to have a child. Talk about trauma. And when her child was older, she was sent away. She was hurting. I can imagine the feelings, the depression, what was happening to her. But in her need, where she was, the Lord came and spoke to her. Our God, El Roi, the God who sees you, saw her and sought to her needs. He was there when she needed. Just as God saw Hagar in her time of need, we too are called to look around and to see others when they are in need and they are hurting. Sometimes we can be shining bright, and then life happens. Problems, anxiety, trauma, things that make us not feel the way that we felt before. But God calls us to still shine. And sometimes we just need somebody to notice us and come along and help us. Maybe you are watching this and thinking, this doesn't apply to me because you never experienced any kind of mental illness, depression, anxiety. But just as the Lord was there for Hagar, we too are called to be there for others. People go through seasons in their lives, and trauma is a real thing that can even rewire the brain. So I urge you to pay attention to the people around you. Reach out, be there for them. A phone call goes a long way. A moment to just stop and listen to what they have to say. Or maybe to just be there with them, saying nothing, but being present. Last year, the British government put out a series of commercials talking about mental health. They had the tagline, Britain, get talking. If you are one of those people wondering what can you do and how can you help, be open. Let's normalize talking about mental illness and mental disorders. Let's normalize talking about mental health and make it an everyday thing. There is no problem with someone going to the doctor when they broke a bone. Why is it that we still have such stigma when people go to the doctor for their mental health? You see, In 1 Kings, we read about Elijah and how he went through a period of depression, and the Lord gave him time to rest and to eat and to heal. So just as he saw Elijah, just as he saw Hagar, let's be people who see. Let's be people who talk. Let's be people who acknowledge that some things take time. And if you or somebody you know is struggling right now, please don't suffer alone. Reach out. Reach out to a friend. Reach out to your core officer. Reach out to a mental health care provider in your area. There are tools. There are things that are there at your disposal. And there's people and a God who love you and want to be there for you. There is hope. And if somebody you know is not able to reach out on their own right now, do that for them. Be there as God has called us to be there for others. Let's normalize being there for each other. Let's normalize saying, hey, I can't today because I am helping my friend who's suffering from depression. I can't today because I am going to spend time with a friend who has anxiety and can't come out. Let's normalize being there for the people who need us. And if you are one of the people who need it, let's normalize being open and saying, I can't go out today because I suffer from anxiety and I can't handle it today. It is okay to be who you are. And it is okay to have these feelings because there are no such a thing as bad feelings. But don't go through it alone. Reach out. Call someone. Be with someone. Sit with someone. Because God intended for us to be in community, to be together, to support one another. There's love and there's hope. Just reach out.